At work today. Many of you know that I work at a lumber yard. I do retail sales for a living. Happen to live in Astoria, and I was talking with some of the guys there, and it was amazing to hear some of the stories that they had to tell when they found out that Astoria has not only the highest cost of living or the most expensive place to live in the top 10 in the nation, but it also carries the highest homeless population as well. And now, as I asked people, I was just like, well, do you live here? Have you always lived here? How long have you lived here? And started hearing some of the stories that people had to say, because this is really where it starts getting pretty incredible. Because when you think about some things that people had talked about as far as their past and what it is that they were experiencing comparatively to what it is today, if this is not like living Cantillon effect, like in its most extreme fashion, Astoria is absolute proof of it. And so as I started thinking about it, it was like I'm like understanding the Cantillon effect so well, just simply because of the location that I am at, because it is such a good example of it. Right? A lot of people will call it gentrification, but it's more than that. Like Astoria is an incredibly old town. You got to think this is like John Jacob Astor, the famous millionaire who sank on the Titanic, right? So Astor or Astoria is always been like a legacy city, like a known town, home of the Goonies, all this other kind of like famous popular, kind of things from like the movies and stuff like that. You know what I mean? It's like everybody knows Astoria. Anyway, when I started talking to people about how it is that they had lived in Astoria, it used to be very close to the story that my wife and I had told. Like when we graduated high school, we both had part-time jobs. With those part-time jobs, we were able to rent an apartment. Now, it wasn't great, but the part-time jobs were able to actually get the apartment. My wife, whose family essentially moved away, she moved into that apartment and was going to high school and going to work, and we were renting an apartment together. Now, to think about, oops, hold on, guys, 1 second. Let me just make sure the Wi-Fi is turned off. You guys getting good sound? The sound coming through all right? All right. Just making sure there. All right. And so she was living in that apartment, and now it wasn't great, but we were making ends meet. And then when I graduated, I moved in with her. We've been together ever since, and it was a rough time. Like, two kids, part-time jobs, living in an apartment, trying to make it, very tough, eating cardboard pizza left over from the buffet. I've told the story a million times. But we made it through that, right? And it wasn't like it was impossible because other people were doing it too. Like we weren't the only ones. I knew other people who were working essentially in the service industry doing restaurant work, right? They were cooking, waiting tables, doing whatever, and they were doing essentially the same thing my wife and I were doing. She was working at a pizza parlor, service industry. I was working at a lumber yard, loading up 2x4s, right? This is what we were doing. And we were able to make our way through this, and a lot of our friends were doing it this very much the same way. Now, when I think about what this town was like back in the day, it was small. We had a small hospital. Right? We had logging fishing community. That was the majority of like the income that came in. And so as the logging and fishing would take place, you would see like, the influx of money coming into the town. And that was essentially where it was coming from. And it was somewhat steady being that sort of industry. As time went on, that industry, although still exists, was then also compounded, bringing money in through a lot of not only tourism, which started becoming very popular here in the area, but then we also had a very big growing hospital district. Then we had also a really big retirement community because Astoria is a really nice, clean, friendly area. And so as these things started to take place, the new money started to come in. It was very difficult for the person who was waiting tables or loading 2x4s up to rent an apartment. All of a sudden, this is a luxurious place to be. It's safe, it's clean, it's famous, it's popular, all the wonderful things that everybody wanted of Astoria. They wanted to move here, and it made it very difficult for the working class individual to live. Now, I know this along with a lot of other my friends who had experienced very similar things. Some of them had to move away, and other ones found it very difficult to operate here. Those who weren't able to find the professions and get into a position in which that they could get a house were essentially finding it very difficult and starting to fall down the line. And this is where the divide started to really take place. I'm thinking it wasn't just people who could just be working class working anymore. If you didn't get into a profession, you were falling down behind. Like if you didn't really level up, if you weren't industrious, if you weren't keeping up and leveling up, then you were falling behind. And if you were falling behind, most likely there was a lot of other things contributing to that. Right? Now, I'm not trying to give anybody else's excuses or blame the victims or anything else out there, but when you start finding it very difficult to operate, you start looking for things to cover up that pain. And so you wonder why people who are suffering down in the depths of depression are all kind of covering it up. It's because essentially they're trying to cover up the pain. Now, what was so painful about it when there was a time that you could just go to work, have an average job, make it through life? Hey, no big deal. But if you were trying to pull that off and every single month, every single year, every single decade goes by and you felt it getting harder and harder and harder and there was nothing you could do to keep up, well, then you find yourself falling ever down the wedge. So now here in Astoria, we have a perfect example of this taking place. Like I saw it for myself, felt it for myself. Many of you know my story. I was 40 years old, completely like drinking, smoking weed, doing the wrong thing, not trying anything, not trying to do anything. And had, I don't know, $20,000+ in debt on credit cards and other things. Like I was in bad shape, right? This is 9 years ago. And so when I think about what it is that I was able to pull off in this area, and people say, man, you're not doing anything. And I'm thinking, no, man, understanding the Cantillon effect changed everything for me. Understanding the economic theories, understanding the economic forces changed everything about the way that I was looking at this world. See, like a lot of people say we all can't have a YouTube channel, and I disagree with that. I think everybody could. It's free. It's a free platform. Everybody could have a YouTube channel. Not everybody's going to do successful videos, and I get that part. But I put enough effort into my YouTube channel that it could have been a second job. And as people say, you could have started a business, and I said I did, right? I put a lot of time, effort, energy into making these videos, bringing out the information, doing all the lumber stuff, going off and speaking engagements, everything that I do, I'm trying to share information. And I think this is my passion, and this is what I like to do. And when I think about what it is that I've learned from the Cantillon effect, and I think about where it is that I live, and I'm thinking, man, I got the best example of it in the entire world. It's no wonder why I'm so good at being able to describe it and see it, is because I'm living it in real time and didn't even realize how much of an example I had. Think about it. We have the highest homeless population one of the highest homeless populations in the entire country. Like definitely in the state of emergency at one point. I don't know, still giving it a state of emergency. And what's crazy about it is like, I'm thinking, oh, it's not bad, right? I mean, I know a lot of the homeless people. They've kind of come on to be part of the community. I know them by name. They hang out, we're kind of like buds. I mean, I understand it's a rough time. It's difficult out there. I mean, there's no way that you can make it. And, I mean, the drugs and alcohol kind of part of it is just like, yeah, I can really see how you're definitely not going to make it doing that. But I've almost come to the point that it was just like, yeah, I guess they were such a part of the community. I never really realized they were even there. It was just like, how big is it? Is that bad of a situation? I knew it was hard to make it. I mean, I had to think about all the crap I had to do in order to get into the house, having the YouTube channel, working the side hustles, saving ever increasing amounts as much as I possibly can, trying to figure out what it is that I needed to do in order to get in. It was difficult, hard. Right? Trying to keep up with all these retirees and remote workers and all these professionals out here who are taking all the houses away from the abilities of the average working class individual. I thought, man, yeah, it was damn hard to do that. I don't know how industrious somebody needs to be in order to get a house around here, but I don't know if it can really happen. Like, I don't think I could do it again if I had to do it here. This is how bad it's getting. The wedge of inequality is being driven. And the homeless population being as extreme as it is in this area, and the houses being as expensive as they are, considering it's the 10th most expensive in the nation with populations 10 to 50,000 people, this is incredible. Like, I have first row seat to the Cantillon effect in full swing. Astoria is like the perfect example of it. Right? Anybody want to hear some chapters? Man, let's break down some chapters. It's like, this stuff is becoming like, something of a seminar or a sermon or something. A seminar. It's a seminar for sure. That's what I should definitely do. Oh, I don't even know what I'm thinking anymore. When I was listening to some of the guys talk out there, and I'm thinking, man, the stories were just so telling. There was a time when we used to be able to make it, right? Now you have to be fairly industrious in order to try and acquire anything around this area. I hear people say, it was just like, man, real estate's the way to go. And I'm thinking, I see a duplex fixer-upper, like gutted. Go check it out for yourself. You could probably find this. Go into Astoria Zillow. You could probably find this for yourself. Just go and look at duplexes. And it's like, I don't know, it's like a gutted out, I don't know, 2-story. It's got like 2 apartments or whatever it is. I don't even know. $380,000, right? $380,000, and I'm thinking, no way, right? Like, this is not my first deal. No way. In fact, there's nothing in Astoria that's going to be my first deal. Because Astoria is not the place to have the first deal, because the wedge of inequality that is being driven here has people diving into luxuries like you wouldn't believe, and it's causing the town to change. And the homeless population is evidence of that. I know a lot of people are going to be like, oh, no, it's your liberal politics and all that other shit. Okay, that's great. That's a wonderful story to hear, and I know because you live here, huh? Now, once we get through all that, we're going to start realizing that this town is not the same place, not because of the politics, but because of the property owners that live here now. They are remote workers. They are hospital district. They are retirees. These people have driven up the available locations to live in such a way that people who work the restaurants are having a very difficult time. There was a time when 2 kids working part-time jobs, earning minimum wage, were able to rent an apartment in this town. I know, I was one of them. All right? It doesn't exist anymore. That's gone. And so to think about how it is that they can switch this around with some kind of political mindset is beyond me. It doesn't work like that. Now, I know a lot of people wish it did. What they are going to find is that they are going to get lied to. They're going to get misrepresentation, and they are not going to find that the political environment is the one that they had voted for. Because that's how politics work. I mean, think about it. Has politics ever worked? Ever? No. All right. I mean, all right, let's read some comments here. Let's talk about how difficult it is in your area comparatively. Yeah, Tillamook is definitely, like, I would say anywhere on the coast, from Oregon to like anywhere on the West Coast. But you think about it, like, Astoria has, and I don't know what the homeless population in Tillamook is like, but I know in Astoria, like, I didn't even realize how bad it was getting. Like, I saw the tents and stuff, but I've been to Portland. There's tents all over the place there too, right? Like, I didn't think about it. It was like, how bad could it really possibly be? And then they're like, well, it's in a state of emergency. And I'm like, oh, really? Man, I didn't realize. Well, I guess I do know a lot of them now, don't I? It's just, we're missing too much information to decide if that property is a go. Go check it out. Selling 3-bedroom condo at beach for $395. What did I miss? Standard nurse, we were talking about a unique fixer-upper opportunity in Astoria for $380,000, which nobody is going to buy for their first-time fixer-upper. Good evening, Standard Nurse, man. I appreciate you being here, bro. All right, Cantillon figured out how politics work. No, Cantillon realized that politics clouds your ability to see the underlying economic forces. In fact, he says it. Here, let me show you. He says it right here. I got my Cantillon essay. Everybody else got their copy of the Cantillon essay? All right. Okay, so the political economy does not accurately describe the subject Cantillon addressed. Indeed, he scrupulously avoided political issues in order to concentrate on the mechanics of the 18th century economic life. When confronted by extraneous factors such as politics, Cantillon insisted that such considerations be put aside, so as not to complicate our subject. That's why I'm so adamant about it. I mean, Cantillon said, don't let politics screw your economic theories up, because that's exactly what it'll do. And it did me too. I mean, I was very politically minded for a very long time. 20 plus years ago, like, I was very much into politics. I gave it up 20 years ago, and I never looked back, and I've never been happier since. I was like, screw that noise. Those people are not in it for you. Right? They're not. Once you kind of see it and you realize what it is that it's really about. See, here's the thing. The politics of the matter comes down to this. There are elite people out there, not even like the rich elite that you see out there. There's rich elite out there that you don't see that are way out there, and you guys know what I'm talking about. In order for them to have any kind of power, they can't talk to you. They can't directly talk to you. You'd beat them up, right? So what they do is they have this screen, this politics, right? So now there's this interference. It's this, secondary layer essentially going on that you communicate through. And this is the unfortunate consequence of dealing with politics, is that it's not the actual dealing with the people that are in power. People think that they're in power. They're not. They're merely guiding herds and directing people's behavior. It's sad to see it happen, and I know a lot of people will think, oh, you're just a conspiracy theorist, and I think, yeah, I know. That's why I gave that shit up, right? It was just like, I can't take it anymore. Those people are definitely mind-controlling everybody out there, and when I finally said, that's it, I'm done with it, I'm diving into this monetary theory for myself, I'm going to figure it out, screw anybody else's noise on what it is that they are saying about it, and when I started learning about monetary policy and the things that I did learn about it, it started blowing me away how inaccurate the entire globe got it. And now I'm not trying to be like cocky and arrogant and stuff like that, but I'm thinking, man, I got this stuff so dialed in. People want to come out and call me out for all kinds of like loudmouth and, blowing hot air and doing all kinds of like, just miscommunications and stuff like that. And I'm thinking, you have no idea how many people have come and thanked me. I don't know how many people have come and thanked me just for telling my story about alcohol. I don't, screw the economics, screw all the money, screw all the investing, screw all that stuff that people have to say that I'm not doing or doing out there. I don't care. I've had people come and tell me, dude, thank you, I'm 6 months sober. You know how rewarding that is? It's probably one of the most rewarding things I could ever experience by having this YouTube channel. And people say, I ain't doing nothing out there. Pfft, whatever. I know what I'm doing is right. And the more I do it, the more I share it, the more I see it out there that people are not going to get it because they don't understand the economic forces. Just take a look at Astoria. It's a perfect example of it. The most extreme homeless and extreme expenses. Huh? I mean, Cantillon said it. Here, if you guys don't believe it, just go and check it out, man. Like, Cantillon's essay on economic theory is probably one of the most brilliant things ever written, especially when it comes to the 3 chapters, chapters 6, 7, and 8, and the part 2 of the essay. Incredible. Just absolutely incredible to see. Where am I at? This is... I just love this essay. I read it all the time. Right? The increase and decrease of money to the state. It is probably like, when you go through this and you think about the economic powers that he was describing in here, it is absolutely incredible. It is the most telling thing ever. Let me see, where's the foreword on chapter 8? That's the one I want to go to. It's good stuff, guys. I'm glad you're all hanging out and listening to this. Go and check out the links I leave down in the description, too. There we go. Check out the foreword of this one. This is chapter 8, right? It says, the increase in the supply of money from the balance of trade eventually causes prices to rise. Now, a lot of you have heard me talk about the United States and the rising of the, being the industrious nation we were, producing all the great stuff, sending that stuff out there to the world, and the world sending us their money. That's exactly what he's talking about there. The increase in the supply of money from the balance of trade eventually causes prices to rise. This in turn puts pressure on domestic producers and increases imports. The result is that the balance of trade is reduced and eventually is negative. And so when you think about what ends up happening when you have this importing, when you're actually importing money, when you become industrious, when you are getting the flow, man, you're in it. You raise your standard of living. The more people who do that, the more people who raise their standard of living, what is it going to happen? Right? You're going to have supply demand issues because it's creating more consumption. And this is easy to understand. Like you as yourself, when you started getting a job that you started, earning more money and you started getting, that higher pay and you're thinking, man, I want a nicer car, I want a nicer apartment, I want nicer clothes. Everybody knows this. And this is the exact thing that's going to start driving out the domestic manufacturers and start bringing in foreign production. Cantillon described it. There's no reason to think that there is like a political mindset that was doing it. This is an economic force, right? Goes on to say this results in the balance of trade is reduced and eventually is negative. Right? United States trade deficits. This is Cantillon's price specie flow mechanism, which demonstrates the reason for the tendencies for equilibrium in international monetary flows. Now, the understanding for this is that the Cantillon effect really was kicking in when Nixon severed the gold standard. That was the equilibrium that Cantillon was talking about. The United States was about ready to relinquish all the gold back out there to the world. Nixon said, nah, we're going to sever the gold standard and we're going to print up money and you're going to accept U.S. treasuries as if they were gold. And we promise we won't print too much. Right? So this is where Cantillon would have said right there. That's when the United States should have collapsed. It should have collapsed years earlier, but whatever. Right there, it should have collapsed too when they severed the gold standard. That's when the gold should have gone back out there to the world. It was the Cantillon effect that was kicking in. However, it's not like the Cantillon effect stops. If you replace gold with U.S. treasuries and you start printing up a bunch of money, now what are you going to have? Ever increasing amounts of money that flows into the system. The Cantillon effect continues onward with the separation between the rich and the poor and the ever increasing amounts of foreign production and the ever increasing amounts of exporting of dollars. The balance of trade can result in economic power, but this will cause the economy to lapse into luxury and decline. It's every time. There's no doubt about it. You're watching it happen all over the world. The United States is going through it in a massive way. And if you look at Astoria specifically, you can see it in a great prime example of it. Because the 10th most expensive place with populations 10 to 50,000 people is also carrying one of the highest homeless population. Wonder why? Is it you think maybe a guy who is describing situations such as this hundreds of years ago might have a bit of a clue to it? Just some, right? All right, let's read some of these comments. All nighter, thank you so much for being up in here. Best damn moderator on YouTube. All right. Everybody needs to you know what, All Nighter, do you have a PayPal? You should put PayPal up there and you should see if we can get you some PayPal donations or something going. See, YouTube doesn't offer anything for moderators, and we need to figure out a way that we can tip the moderators for doing such a good job. You can mix economies successfully. The lesser economies will always drag the others down as they increase. I don't know. I think it's on the position. Don't forget to hit the like button. Thank you, Standard Nursery. This is a good stream. Thank you, Standard Nursery, again. All right. Never Tellerico? I don't know. Benny. I don't know what that means. Big Hill in the room. Big Hill, evening gang. 10 seconds is all I needed. All right. Yes, you wind up paying twice for your home if you calculate the interest, and some people reset that over and over. All right. I'm buying another Cantillon to gift. Right on, Benny. Yeah, and this is it's such a good essay, and it's old. Like it's kind of hard to get through at some points. It's kind of boring and stuff like that. But man, there is so many telling things within this essay. Like just the population. Like I don't know if I can find it right away, but like I used to have this page marked, and if I had my computer out here, I'd be able to like go right to it. But he describes the population growth and what it is that has people increasing and decreasing of population in the state. And it's really telling to see what it is that does it, because most people think about it as being like an education thing, or it's being like a, I don't know, like birth control or modern time societies or something like that. And although like a lot of that I bet probably has, quite a bit to contribute into it, I think really the ultimate, where am I at? Ultimately what it comes down to is the wealth of the nation itself, and not maybe necessarily the nation, but the population. Because if you have a population that is very poverty stricken, they're going to be able to have a lot of kids. And that's because they don't really have any deterioration to their life by having more kids, right? Like if you have more kids, generally you're going to have to pay a lot more for them. But if you're already poverty stricken, then you're probably not going to have to worry about going into poverty any more than you are, because you're already about as deep as you're going to get into it, right? So having more kids doesn't really deteriorate your life that much more. When on the other hand, I don't know where it's at. When on the other hand, you can, if you were like successful, had a like a decent income, had this like elevated lifestyle, when you have a kid, now you have to sacrifice that elevated lifestyle. Like you have to give up some luxuries in order to have to have these kids, because kids are expensive, right? And so I understand a lot of people are going to be like, oh man, the kids are the most valuable thing out there. Okay, that's great, that's wonderful. But when you think about what it is that people experience for their life, if your life is going to deteriorate, like your luxurious experience is going to diminish, it doesn't matter what's doing it. That is the most painful thing in the entire world, right? And you just ask anybody, right? So going from having a wonderful house to a crappy apartment is a painful experience. Going from having like, really nice fancy cars to used, beater cars. These are painful experiences, and that's generally something, and those are extreme manners, but it doesn't matter. What this ends up doing is it creates a feeling of deterioration, and people don't like that, right? And that's why they don't have kids unless they can absolutely afford them, like in the most extreme ways, right? So if you have like a lot of money, then yeah, maybe. But if you're struggling, like most Americans, like 80% of Americans are attempting to do out there, having kids is not going to elevate their life as much as it is going to cost them. Right? Now, it's going to cost them in ways that they probably will really enjoy and find that it benefits them in much more than money could ever imagine. But that's not the point, right? The point is that it's going to be deteriorating to their financial situations or their income or their money or whatever, because kids are expensive, right? So, look at it for the example. Every poverty-stricken nation that you can imagine out there has lots of kids, and all the advanced nations who have a lot of wealth don't. Cantillon said that would be the case. Right? So it's the Cantillon effect that's doing it. All the other things that you're witnessing, the education, the social changes, the birth control, all that other stuff, symptoms, examples, but not the reason, right? The reason is because people's elevated lifestyle prevents them from wanting to have kids. If they had a deteriorated life, they could have as many kids as they want. Actually, it's better because one of them might be successful and actually pull you out of poverty, right? And see, this is the thing that you can go and learn for yourself when you go and become a member of the UE University. There's a link down in the description. I have that available for you for another free trial for, I think I'm going to keep that up for another 5 or 6 days or so. And then after that, you're going to have to pay for it. So the free trial is still available for the time being. Right? And just go and check it out. Like, go and check it out. And if you don't like it, just, whatever. And go and take the information for yourself because it's all for free. I've been trying to give it away forever. And a lot of people took it. I got thousands of people who have told me, it's just like, dude, thank you for sharing the credible threat theory. Thank you for all the information and all that. And I totally get it. But I know there's a lot of people out there who still haven't seen it. And I've been trying to give it away for free, but pretty soon it's just going to have to charge for it. And that's all there is to it. But it's free for now. So go and check out the link down in the description, UE University. You can get the credible threat theory, which is all the speeches that I have found talking about how it is that the monetary policy is truly being conducted. With those speeches, you get the highlight. I highlighted all of them, so you know right where to go to and start retaining that information for yourself. Okay, we can expect population growth soon after the economy collapses and we all fall into poverty and misery. So, trying to eliminate a group of people by imposing economic hardship isn't really the way. No, I don't think so. But well, the thing is that if you can make it easier, if you can make it easier for the people to have a lot of kids, like if you were going through the industrial revolution, like we were, like a single family could have a bunch of kids, or a single income could have a bunch of kids. That was on the way up. Like we were coming out of like, you know, horrible depressionary times, going through this like, awesome event that was going to take place for a few decades of awesomeness. Leading up to it was great. The few ends on the trail end, not so bad, right? But once it was over, it was over. And it was only just that moment in time that they had the best opportunity to earn the most money and have the most kids. And then after that, right? You could earn a lot of money, but you weren't going to have a lot of kids. And before that, you could have a lot of kids, but you weren't going to have a lot of money. There was just that moment, that brief moment, in which that it was like the sweet spot to do it. Then after that, it was over. All right, people are not having kids because society is broken. See, Kirk, this is really where you're going to end up. Like, okay, so don't see it from an economic force that was described hundreds of years ago. Don't see it that way. See it from the broken society and then miss it by how it was that somebody was able to describe it hundreds of years ago. Like he didn't know it was going to be a broken society going into the future. He kind of does, really. But it's different back in the day because women actually made a choice not to hook up because the fear of getting pregnant. Now, there's not so much that fear. And because of that, there's a whole different way of changing to society, but it doesn't change the underlying economic force, which is the desire to or not to have kids. And that's another thing it comes down to is this is really where I think it's a lot of fun. Like women make the decision on whether or not to have kids. Men make the decision on whether or not to have a family. All right. And if the man can't really decide on whether or not he wants a family because there's just no real way of him be able to like provide that, then it makes it very difficult for the family formation to even take place. The dependence on the man's ability to do something is what forms the family formation. That's what makes it happen. Without it, there's no way. Yeah. And so as the money is grown and everybody has access to it, and there is no way of really being dependent upon the man anymore to do his job, then it just kind of falls apart. Like, what's the point of it? He doesn't really need to try that hard to provide for all these other people out there when he really probably just rather go fishing all day anyway. All right? Like, you can think about it in that fashion. It is that way. It's about economics. It really comes down to it. And the poorer a nation is, and the more they're coming out of that poverty, that's the time you're going to find the biggest population growth. It gives them the most abilities. It's like the sweet spot for them. All right, Benny, what if a man can't get up nor unload? What are the options? Fertility rates are down, although I don't trust those studies. Another vector of demoralization. It's all happened. Society. It's like you can see it just within the music, the videos, the movies that are out there, the stories that are being told. Like you can see how it is that it's all like not geared towards an idea of like I want to form a family. Like or is that like it? You got to think like there was a generation like Generation X wasn't raised on an idea. Like they were the last generation to actually have a family formation idea. Like my friends, like it's weird. I look at a lot of my friends that I graduated high school with, and it's amazing on how many of us are still with the woman that we like were with in high school, or shortly after. Like a lot of us just, stayed together. After that, I don't know anybody who really stayed together. It was just a complete disintegration of all the, you know, all the couples that we knew. And I don't know like exactly what it was that did it outside of the social networks and stuff like that that started taking place with the phones and all that. Those were big changes that were happening, but it wasn't just that. It was the entertainment that was going into the people. Like we were watching things like Little House on the Prairie kind of things, right? You remember that? Like I don't even remember. Like there was no bad, like questionable TV shows out there. Like they were all like essentially wholesome shows for the most part. At least the ones that would be on when you were awake. And so these were the impressions that we got when we were kids, is that we still actually had a wholesome, like, attempt to be put into us, even though like society was decaying around us in all kinds of fashions. It was like that early in childhood impression from the media that we were getting wasn't one of like crime and hate and all the other disgusting things that are out there. So yeah, I can blame that, but really that is symptoms of it. Like you can go and find biblical stories of how deterioration of societies took place within the abundance of money, right? Like I don't know anything about the Bible, but it's a pretty good storyteller, right? And it's usually telling a pretty good story of history. And if you're looking at a story from history that says, man, these people were just like living this life of luxury and just pretty much pissing on the poor, and I'm thinking, wow, this thing gets cooled over and over again, this Cantillon effect, doesn't it, man? It's just like, hey, this keeps going back there further and further. I just keep finding evidence of it everywhere I look, you know? Uh, Rome still fell even without the smartphones. Well, it's going to fall because what they ended up doing was they were conquering the world for the new money. And then once they couldn't conquer any new money, right, all the money went exporting for all the lavish living that they were doing. And then eventually the money collapsed the system because there wasn't any there. It all got exported for their fancy things that they were buying. All right, kids are not that expensive. First 10 years, it is the wife who costs the most. Uh, yeah, but you got to invest the right thing and never mind. All right, average income. I have like where? In Astoria? I have no idea. Like cuz that's going to change real soon cuz I couldn't tell you the amount of change that is happening right now is unreal. Like it I knew it was happening. Like you could just see it taking place. Like you could see the tourist industry picking up. You could see the hospital district expanding. But it was like it went like, and I'm like, whoa, right? It was like it just kind of like did this step, and all of a sudden it just took like this huge step, and I'm like, wow, what in the world? It was like this is really taking off here. And it's funny because people are like, yeah, this is the economy, Trump economy. And I'm like, no, like these projects have been in motion for like a while now. Like this thing doesn't just get fired up. And we're talking a hospital, like the new expansion to the hospital. I can't even tell you how many millions of dollars must be going into this thing, but they're going to like double the size of the hospital. It's crazy, right? And then on top of that, they just built a brand new medical facility right across the street from where I work. And it's a big, giant building. It's huge, right? And then on top of that, they have apartment complexes that are going in downtown, plus one that's finishing on the other side of town. It's like building that is going on in Astoria right now is about the most I have. It's the most that it's ever been, I'm sure. I mean, unless you go back way back in the day or something, but it's the most that I know I have ever seen, especially with the expansion of the museum as well. It's like every single thing is taken off in Astoria, and I'm looking at that and I'm going, oh boy, when this is all said and done and these projects are all done, this is going to be one fancy place. All right. Totally set up for retirement. Huge, huge. Like there's the hospital district is all over town, right? It used to be just the hospital. Now there's like medical facilities all over town. I'm like, what in the world, man? It's like here, there, there, there. It's all over Astoria. It's like this is definitely going to be the hospital district of this area. And so when I think about what it is that's happening here, it's like this is retirement. This is setting up for retirement community big time. And if that happens, that's going to be a lot of money that's going to pour into this area for people who can actually afford to live here. Like if you're retired and you're moving to Astoria, it's just like holy crap. Like you must be doing quite well because there's nothing here that's cheap. And it's ranked the 10th most expensive place in the entire nation. It's like why would you do this on purpose unless you truly really wanted to be here, right? So this is what we face here in Astoria, and I think I think about it from the Cantillon effect all the time. It's just like, man, if this isn't just the most prime example of it, yeah. 66 thumbs up. You guys liking the video? We got 137 people watching. I think the most of you guys are liking it. I think he gives her money once a week to buy stuff. I will enjoy the hospital district when me and my unit Grace Astoria. Cool. You mean the new 15% tariffs? That's what's funny about it. It was just like, I mean, I don't know how many people caught the video that I had done a while back, like 3 months ago, saying that the tariff threats will never end, and talking about how the Supreme Court was definitely going to shoot these things down and that Donald Trump was going to launch the Game 2 plan in order to keep the credible threat going. Once you keep the credible threat going, because remember, these things also have to be approved by Congress, right? So anyway, once these things get approved or disapproved, which I'm sure is probably going to happen, but regardless, it doesn't matter. The credible threat of the inflationary expectations and pushing the inflationary scenario is the point because that's the reality of the situation, not the tariffs. Those things are illegal. Now they have to figure out how to refund all that money. But the reality of the situation is they definitely raise the inflation and inflation expectation, which in turn raises the neutral interest rate and makes the economy less restricted for the top 10, 20% of household incomes. And that was the goal of it. And every single time somebody goes, yeah, the inflationary scenario is killing us all, I'm thinking to myself, another rich elitist gets their dividend wings. I don't know how to I don't know how to describe it, man, but that's what happens. It raises the neutral interest rate with the inflation expectations every time that happens. Now, if the tariffs are real or not real, it doesn't really matter at this point. The impact of them has already taken place. Right? We, the people, pay the consequence of it. And that was the point that I was trying to make. Nobody wanted to hear it that way. They wanted to think that I was just pushing against Trump because I didn't like Trump. And I'm thinking, no, that's not the point. The point is that everybody's expectation raises the inflation expectations and the neutral interest rate. And that's the point that I've been trying to make, is that it gives the ability for the rich elitists to have a financial system that is less restricted, and that is a benefit to them. And I try to share this over and over again, and people just go like, man, you just hate Trump. And I'm like, yeah, but that's not the reason why. You're right, but that's not why. And so anyway. Simon's definitely a fan. A fan of what? What am I a fan of? Let me screw it back up here a little ways. Benny, Simon doesn't want to get in trouble with dishes. No, what are you guys talking about? We're talking about economics, right? All right, I'm in the background listening and reading. Right on, bro. All right. If AI and anything going to be automatic, anything will cost almost nothing. Okay. My ex-girlfriend asked me when this is coming from who? Jeff. Okay. My ex-girlfriend asked me when I'm going to get modern dishwasher. I said I have two now, my hands and her hands. Mine works. She said she's never dated a man without modern dishwasher. Huh. Um, that's interesting. I probably wouldn't do very well out there. Like I just probably wouldn't. It's just like I like a man that doesn't have a modern dishwasher, and I'm thinking, holy crap! Like I don't want to own anything, let alone a freaking dishwasher, right? Like every single dishwasher I've ever heard of leaks all over the damn place and ruins the floor. You know how many times I've heard of that happening? Like, of course, I work at a lumberyard where people have to repair that all the time. But yeah, all the time, right? It was just like, why do people have dishwashers? Just damn wash the damn dishes. It's not that hard, right? It's enjoyable. Put the headphones on, put your hands in the nice warm water, sudsy, makes it all nice and clean, and you get to be proud of yourself for doing it. Like, why wouldn't you want to do the dishes? I don't get it. Of course, I don't do the dishes, so why would I know? All right. Let's cruise back up here. Credible threats, more like shock and awe. Yeah. Maybe Simon should put Scott Bessent out of a career. This is the thing. It's funny. I will debate anybody on monetary policy at this point. Like when it comes to understanding the neutral interest rate, what is happening with that, the elevated inflation expectations, the fact that they're going to use the credible threat of tariffs, and then they're going to use the credible threat of Jerome Powell, and whether or not he is going to be criminally charged. And as long as that investigation has taken place, the Senate says we're not going to confirm a new chairman. And if the new chairman is not confirmed, then the old chairman holds his position even after the expiration of his term. That's the law. That's cool, right? I mean, how many people know that? I do. Now, unfortunately, most people are never going to see it because they think that Jerome Powell is somehow in charge of interest rates, which I think is just comical to begin with. And none of it really matters with Jerome Powell anyway. It's the credible threat of the independence of the Federal Reserve that will be up in question. And this is really where the popcorn comes in. And I don't know how many people see it. So let's go and debate, man. I love to debate the monetary policy, neutral interest rate, and what it is that's going to be happening with monetary policy, considering the inflation expectations that come from the credible threat of tariffs. I got this stuff dialed in. There's no way. I don't even need my books or notes or anything else. I'll start calling out speeches from long ago and I'll call the Fed out. You guys said this here, right? Remember John Williams, November of 2018, Monetary Policy Strategies for a Low Neutral Interest Rate World, when you said that the problem that the Federal Reserve needed to solve was an inflation that was persistently too low and rather than too high? You said those words. Like I've memorized a lot of it. It's just like you can't unhear it, you can't unknow it, and he can't unsay it. And since I'm the only one who's going to talk about it over and over again, I'm the only one who's talking the real monetary policy. Everybody else is talking superficial stuff. It's all surface level. Nobody has dove in deep into it. Nobody. They all like to talk on the surface, talk about, real, I don't know, glamorous things, things that really, make a big, nice shock and surprise and lights everybody up. That's the things that everybody else talks about. It's all surface level. None of it means anything. When you start diving into it the way that I have, you start looking into those speeches that I have shared on the credible threat theory over there at the UE University that you still have free access to. I don't know why you wouldn't want to go check it out, but whatever. You got free access to it right now. You can go and check out all the speeches that I have highlighted and showing right where it is, how they have used their words. They said that they were going to use particular words and sentences in order to create an inflationary or deflationary expectation to increase or decrease the financial markets. This is coming from speeches that were delivered by Philip Jefferson. Those speeches available for free to you, highlighted marks down in the UE University. Free for 7 days for you to go and take for yourself. Simon, do you think Warsh will get outside for Shelton? Will get ousted for Shelton? That's the last thing we need is a woman back, and the Fed could see. I don't know. I mean, if any, do you know who Shelton is? Like, if there was any buddy out there that is a contender for the chairman, I would pick Shelton. Right? Not that I care, but I would pick Shelton just because I would just love for her to say some words, man. I would just love to see what she has to say about that kind of stuff. Like if she was able to share an opinion. In fact, I wouldn't want her as the chairman because she would be speaking on the behalf of the FOMC. I would just love to see her on the FOMC giving speeches. That's what I, not that I'm really change anything, but I would still like to hear what she has to say in that, in that position. Yeah. And I don't even know how many people even know who Judy Shelton is, right? That lady, she has an idea for bringing back a gold, like kind of a gold component to the U.S. Treasuries and stuff. I think it's kind of delusional thinking, but it's cool that she's thinking about it, right? Richard Cantillon looks down on Simon every day and smiles. Well, Benny, thank you. I don't know about that. I don't know if he was necessarily like the greatest guy in the world. Like I don't know. Like he's not like he was kind of a pain in the ass from what I understand, and like really, he was like kind of the rich elitist banker kind of style. And I'm not saying that he ripped a bunch of people off, but I believe he got murdered for it. So I mean, nice theory, bro. I mean, nice to say. But yeah, I don't know if Cantillon was exactly like the coolest dude ever. All right. Yep, that's why what attracted me to your channel, the way you bring monetary money into a clear understanding. Well, thank you, Jeff. And that's the whole point of this channel is, right, for people to have a better understanding of what it is that's going on with the economy. When you see these underlying economic forces playing out, and when you have the conversation and you think about the situation you're in, like for me, I'm thinking about Astoria and I'm like, man, I got an extreme example of the Cantillon effect. No wonder why I'm able to describe it so well. I got so many examples of it, right? I mean, from people who try to start businesses, to try and have rental properties, to try and, retire here, to try and make it here, to try and start a family here, to try and make, all the stuff. It's just like, man, there is a little component of it going on right here. And I've been here for like 30 years, right? So I get to see it all go down. All right, 124 people with 79 people who have hit that like button. Continue to hit that like button. We're going to get this thing up to 120 before I quit. What is it? 50, what are we, 52 minutes into it? What time is it? 7:30, okay. That's how most geniuses are. What are you talking about? I was told that Warsh was a hawk and would tighten restrictions. Is that not the case? Benny, I don't know what it is that Warsh can do outside of his vote. Right? Now, I've said this a million times. There's 11 voting members, 5 alternates, 2 advisors, 19 people make up the FOMC. The chairman's job is to speak on behalf of the FOMC. I'm not sure what it is that the chairman would do to do anything other than change his vote with the 11 other voting members. There has been plenty of dissenting votes. It's not like they all vote in line, right? In fact, there's been more dissenting votes now, creating the uncertainty, fear, uncertainty, and doubt. Gotta love that, right? The fear, uncertainty, and doubt. People have no idea what the hell the Federal Reserve is going to do into the future. Fear, uncertainty, and doubt. Every single time you see the Federal Reserve step out there and start communicating, nobody knows what's going on because the fear, uncertainty, and doubt is exactly what they want the people to feel and have so that when they deploy words, it will have more of an impact. We know this. We know how they're doing this. Like I've been explaining it over and over again. Warsh doesn't mean anything. Shelton wouldn't mean anything. Nothing changes about the Federal Reserve when you put these people in place. There is a strategy. It's called the statement. What is it? The consensus statement, right? The Federal Reserve's consensus statement is a strategy of 5 years. Every 5 years, they put this statement out there and say, hey, this is what our goal is for the next 5 years. All the members of the FOMC, Think about the economy, their knowledge of the economy, their understanding of the economy, and then do their best to achieve the consensus statement. This is how the Federal Reserve operates. That's why I don't understand what most people are talking about out there and why it is that they miss it and can't get it. And why it is that they talk about how the Federal Reserve stumbles around and don't know what they're doing or whatever. And then the uneducated economist never changes his story, because if you're telling the right story, it doesn't change. Right? Like if I'm telling the same, like if you go back and you watch a video that I did 3 months ago and you're like, dude, you sound exactly like you did that 3 months ago. It's like, who's telling the same story over and over again, and it's still the same story and it's still right? Everybody else changes their story to fit their damn narrative that they're trying to come up with. They never get it. They never get it. All right? It's because they're all looking at it on a surface level. Once you dive deep, you look beyond that. You're like, these people are talking about all this stuff, and I'm like, well, that'll probably have a short-term impact, and I can see how it'll cover the news, and it'll probably make people fucking, think about it and stuff. But ultimately, that's not the end goal. The end goal is raising the neutral interest rate. However they get that done, one way or the other. How do they get the neutral interest rate to rise? Well, it takes a lot of inflation expectation. Take some serious inflation expectation, like COVID level tariff type inflation expectations. Who was saying that they had a problem with the neutral interest rate being too low? The entire Federal Reserve prior to 2020. August of 2020. Right? Jerome Powell saying it in his speech, talking about monetary policy, talking about interest rates being too low. Inflation that is too low can pose serious risks to the economy. I mean, I don't need somebody else to tell me what the Federal Reserve is going to do. The Federal Reserve is telling us what they are going to do. I don't know how many other people hear it. They don't see it. They don't want to believe it. And then on top of it, they say the Federal Reserve is lying. And then they go and talk about what it is that the Federal Reserve is really trying to do. And I'm like, no, they're not. They're doing exactly what they said that they were going to do. You're just listening to the wrong people. Right? If you listen to their own words that they gave in their speeches and their documents, and not the crap that they're delivering on the mainstream media, because that is the propagandized tool that they are using to deploy information to make sure that you have elevated inflation expectations. I can say this over and over again because this is the way it's going down. And it's not me who invented this idea. It's the Federal Reserve who is saying it. And all those speeches are available to you right now at the UE University for free. Philip Jefferson and John Williams and Jerome Powell and Michelle Bowman and Lael Brainerd and all of them. They're all there for you. Showers are for the weak. You are not weak, Hyder. What's going on with Hyder? All right. Job site is all cleaned up. You guys and girls are going in the shower with me. No touchies. So funny. Okay. Man, I was so busy talking, I didn't realize I was in the shower with Hyder. Yeah, me neither. All right. All right, you guys are crazy. All right. The more collapses, the closer Simon will get to his goal of earning a full Bitcoin. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, we'll see. I don't know. The Bitcoin goal is just like, it's just a small thing out there. I don't know, man. What are you going to do? What is everybody going to do out there? I mean, everybody says, man, what is it you do? And I'm thinking, man, I do so much. Like, I have so many different positions that I put money towards. It's just like, I don't have anything that's like the thing, dividend paying stocks, I kind of got like a little business thing going. I've got the savings. I got all this, all these spots. I got the real estate in the house, and I got the debt payment I got to make on my credit card. I got to remember to do that. Thing's almost done. So many places, right? Everybody has something different to do. I was thinking about it. It was like, how hard is it to go out there and just pick up money? Like for me, I don't find it that difficult. But I have to do it. I have to actually be present for it. Right? Like it requires my presence. I have to show up for work, I have to show up for, the bingo, I have to show up for whatever it is. And then I have a few things that are passive. Those passive things are pretty cool, right? But they're not anything that's of any kind of extreme. So when it comes to like, being in a position in which that you have passive income, like it's not difficult to find that. What's difficult is to build it up in such a level that it then pays you the ability to live your existence out there, right? And so now this is really where like leveraging it up with property really steps in. This is why everybody does it with property, is because of the ability to do that. Like I can work all day long. Great. Now I got some stock. Well, that's cool. Even if it's a good dividend paying stock and it goes up in value, it's only as much as you can work to earn to buy the stock and hope that it goes up in value and the dividend pay and stuff like that. And that might be a good way of going about it. But until you can leverage it with borrowing like you can cheaply in a mortgage market in order to buy that cash flowing asset, there's very few things that are out there like that. Let me tell you this, guys, right? So I'm looking like, no, like this is not investment advice at all. Pure experiment for me. Like I was not like testing the waters, just seeing what it was like. So Cosmos, the Atom token on Coinbase, can be staked at 14% yield. What in the world? This got to be a scam, right? So I love scams, right? Cool. Like, Crooked Exchange, cool. Let's get ripped off, right? I'm like willing to learn. Let's figure this out. Does this thing really actually pay a 14% yield? Well, until you throw some money in the game, you don't know. So I put some money in there, and sure enough, Coinbase is now giving me this 14% yield weekly. Okay. Can it last forever? Doubt it, right? Like all of us decides that we're going to get 14% compounding interest and eventually we'll own the world. So it would collapse and it can't happen that way. But as of the moment, it is. Now, I couldn't tell you the ins and outs. I'm not here to tell you the ins and outs of it. That's somebody else's channel, right? They're going to do the research. They're going to dive into it. They're going to tell you why, yay, nay, whatever. That's not me. I'm not that dude. I'm the dude who says, you're looking for yield. I don't know where you're going to find it. You're going to find it in a real estate investment, dividend paying stock? Are you going to find it in a rental property? Are you going to find it in a business that you start? Are you going to level up your skills so that you can earn more money, because that's essentially getting more yield? But ultimately, what you want is to place money somewhere that then has a return consistently. Now, how do you do that? If you can borrow money to buy a cash flowing asset like a rental, seems pretty easy. The tenant management, all the other stuff, that can be hard, right? Figure that part out. But that's essentially the easiest way to do this. Coinbase also offers up collateral-based loans, right, for your Bitcoin. So maintain a loan to value ratio and you can pay back the loan on any terms you want, right? So long as you maintain that level of loan to value. So now here it is, you can get like a 4.5% loan and get a 14% return yield with a 10% essentially in between. Now, minus the fees and taxes and all the other stuff, that's a pretty damn good carry trade in between those. Just saying. Like, I mean, I haven't done it, but there it is. I mean, there's probably a ton of people who say you're going to lose everything you got, and I'm thinking you could probably pull it off for a time, right? And I don't imagine that being in the cryptocurrencies and the volatility of it could do anything but drive you bananas and crazy and possibly lose the money. But if you're willing to take the risk, it's like free money, right? Like there it is. It's awesome. It's an opportunity. And whether or not it's legit or real, I guess time will tell. But at this exact moment, I've been getting 14% yield on my little bit of Atom token that I have staked at Coinbase. And I could borrow money at a really cheap interest rate from Coinbase using my Bitcoin as collateral. Give them plenty of collateral and you can call out any terms you want. Pay back it anytime you want. Yeah. I mean, obviously you'll incur the interest, but whatever. It's under your terms. You do whatever you want with it. Huh? Huh? Right? Now I'm sure people out there are probably going to be like, dude, you're the lamest person in the entire world. Whatever, right? I'm just saying, I look for cheap loans, look for yield. How do you do that? In the mortgage market, it's pretty easy getting it into rental properties. People don't question that, right? And then they say, well, really, it doesn't pay off for 10 years, and it was just like, what? You do this and then 10 years down the road you get paid? How about we just start doing something right now? Uh, let's see here. If you do purchase Bitcoin, I heard you have to have like a Bitcoin key to access it. If you have Bitcoin on Coinbase, they'll just manage it all for you. But it's kind of like, giving somebody your gold and saying, "Here, why don't you just hold on to my gold?" And would you do that? Probably not. So having cryptocurrencies, having the private keys yourself is like having it in your own possession, like having physical gold in your hand. Yeah. All right. Better off staking on Coinable or Kraken for USDC. Why? Rentals are risky unless you get lucky with the tenant. Yeah. Simon, 12%, you should like a hedge fund. Simon, 12%, you sound like a hedge fund manager. I'm not. I'm not even close to doing any of that, right? I'm not an investor, guys. I'm an economist. Right? That's what I do. I study economic forces. I think about how that, it's going to impact your, the industries out there, the bullwhip effect kind of thing, Gresham's law. These are the type of things that I think about. I'm not really thinking about investments like where it is that you go to get money. Now, I do that on my own, but that's not necessarily what I'm attempting to do here on the channel. I would love for people to understand the economic forces and then recognize what it is that they need in their life. Like maybe the rental properties is what they need in their life. Maybe that's what I need in my life, just not here in Astoria, right? Because like it's too damn expensive. But looking for just being like, okay, so just in my head, I'm just going to be like, okay, where do I get cheap loans? How do I get a cheap loan, right? Who has the cheapest loans out there? Now, at 4.5%, that's pretty low, considering like there's eventually going to be somebody that's just like, dude, I'm not loaning money out any cheaper than that. Like, I need a return on my money, right? Like, I wouldn't lend out money any less than four. In fact, I wouldn't even do it at 4.5%. Right? Like, I mean, if inflation's running 3, you really got a 1.5% gain on it. That's barely anything at all. You're barely beating inflation. Your purchasing power really isn't gaining that much. So lending money out at even at 4.5% is really just barely cutting, barely treading water. So why would anybody want to loan it to anybody out there at that low rate? You'd have to be, you have to be thankful that somebody's willing to do that. Really. Right? I mean, money doesn't come from like okay. Money doesn't come from nowhere. It got to come from somebody, right? I mean, right? Anyway, yeah, I know that's funny to say. Anyway, but money has to come from somewhere. It has to come from an investor, and the investor says, "Hey, man, I need a return, and my return has to be better than inflation." And now, if you think about it, 4.5% is barely cutting inflation. So why would like that's the best you're gonna probably do? Could somebody else out there offer something a little bit better? Sure, right? Like anybody can offer whatever they want. I mean, you can find, please loan me money for nothing. Here, like I'll charge you to take your money, or I don't know, like, negative interest rate, right? So to understand, like, that's a pretty good interest rate to pay back. And then if you're borrowing that money, right, really the only money that you're getting taxed on is the staked money coming out, right? Isn't that the idea behind it? I don't know. Am I wrong on that? I mean, isn't that an easy way to kind of just go pick up some money? Or am I completely wrong on that? All right. I also used Atom token only because the price was at a low of $1.80 when I bought, and so I staked the price appreciation now at 2.4, 2.5. But don't hold massive amounts thinking it's a real yield. Yeah, like I can't imagine this thing lasting forever being legit like that. Like a 14% yield, come on, like that's ridiculous, right? Um, uh, Robinhood handles my Bitcoin. I like the name. Yeah, I have Bitcoin at Robin. I agree. Stephen rentals are risky. Simon seems to be more optimistic. Um, no, and like here's the thing, guys. I don't know where it is that you think that I'm optimistic or pessimistic about your investment, right? Like if you decide to go 100% into gold and silver, I mean that's on you, right? That's on you. I mean, I'm not telling people to do that. And I'm not trying to tell people to be into stocks and bonds and all the other things that are out there, but I'm trying to tell people that if they are wanting to be wealthy, the way that everybody that I know who has gotten wealthy has done it with real estate. Now, I'm not trying to be like, ooh, yee, real estate. Like, I don't really like the idea of real estate. I don't like the idea of a bunch of tenants. I don't like any of that stuff. But I do like the idea of being able to borrow mortgage money cheap and buy a cash flowing asset. Now, because it happens to be a rental property, whatever, right? And that part I can care less about. The part that I want is cheap money to borrow so that I could get the cash flowing asset. And if I could do that over and over again, and it happens to be a rental that's doing it, okay. But if I could do it with something else, right on. Right? But I don't know anything else out there that anybody else I know who has done it with other than real estate. I'm just saying, why reinvent the wheel? Yeah, right. Is optimistic or pessimistic? That doesn't mean anything. Uh, Today, extreme risk is only way to win, unfortunately. I think, well, I don't know. Is it? Okay, think about it again. Like if you have, okay, so everything takes money. You got to have a little bit of money to start with. I don't know. Is my idea about the carry trade with Atom other than with the 14% yield coming from that Atom token? Outside of being like the risk of the token itself and the volatility of it, the reality still exists, right? I mean, that's a real thing that's happening. How long will it last? How effective is it going to be into the future is anybody's guess. But at this exact moment, am I wrong? Now, on the other side of that, I'm looking at like, okay, so I heard that guy, Jim Rogers, say, when you see the money sitting in the corner, you go pick it up. When you see a pile of money sitting in the corner, you go pick it up. Like, what? What in the world does that mean? But I got to looking at covered puts and or covered staked calls and staked pay or whatever. You got your put options and call options that are covered. And so now this is something that I just recently came across. It's called the wheel strategy, right? And so I got to thinking about that. It was just like if you're going to go pick up money, selling an option on a stock that you would buy anyway, like, yeah, like why wouldn't you just go pick it up? And same thing with the like a stock that you wouldn't mind selling or holding and selling, like you just don't mind even playing with this. You could buy, or I'm sorry, you could sell options both sides of the put and the call on a stock that you would want, do it regularly, and end up like just picking up money the entire time. Now, granted, if it's volatile and you end up having a major stock drop in price, then that could be quite punishing. But if it was a stock that you were willing to hold long term to begin with, you can pick up money. You can just literally go pick up money. And people say all the time, why don't you give me something I can use? And I'm like, I don't know if you're going to be willing to do that. That's like it could cost you a lot of money. There's some risk involved. I mean, but there's ways of just going and getting it. Borrow money cheaply from Coinbase and give it to Atom for 14% yield and see how long it goes for before you lose all your money. I mean, I don't know. Like, how do you do it? Go and level up your skills so you could start a business. Everybody's got the figure, like, you can borrow money to start a business. right? There's like, I mean, I don't know how cheap you're going to get it. I guess it depends on your credit, right? But you can go and borrow money to start a business, and then with that borrowed money, level up your business and really take off with that, right? And like that's kind of like having rental properties is like a business. It's kind of the same thing. You borrow money from the mortgage, get the business going by buying the rentals, right? It's the same thing, only different. Yeah, it's just like the energy going into housing and rentals is different from the production of whatever it is that you're planning on doing. Hiring employees and getting them to do it, and you're sitting back watching the money flow in because you know exactly how to conduct a business. I don't know what it is that people need to have in their life, man. I mean, everybody is different, but understanding the economic forces is key to it all. You know, especially the Cantillon effect. Like understanding the Cantillon effect, once you got it, it's like everything clears up out there. You don't even think about politics in the same way anymore. Simon, I appreciate the true investment of the person. Greeting all. Also, I recommend you put uneducated economists in bold print. Well, thank you, Deja. I really appreciate you being here, and I really appreciate all the nice comments you have always left us. You're definitely a part of the Fuzzy Dice crew. All right. Okay. See, I love the idea. Like, buy things, like I saw that comment as I went by. Buy things that grow, and that's not enough. Like, it's good. Don't get me wrong. It's better than not, but it's not enough. If you can't leverage it up, then it's not enough. Right? I mean, I shouldn't say it's not enough. It's not enough to become like the ultra rich elite, like way up there. It might be enough that you can, kind of make it through. You know, like so you wouldn't be on the bottom side of the wedge. You end up somewhere kind of in between there somewhere. Like that could probably end up taking place. But if you're 40 years old like I was, and you have nothing going on, and you start working, and you start putting in time, and you start showing up, and then you start accumulating the money, and you start putting it towards savings, you don't really get to use the savings for anything. Like if I used it, then it would be gone. So now I have it, and I can't do anything with it. I like managed to like it's incredible to think, guys. Like I was adding it all up, and I don't mean to brag, but it's like it's pushing $250,000 now of net worth between the house and the assets and everything else. And I'm like, holy crap, man! For somebody who had absolutely nothing 9 years ago, that I'm like, woo, whatever I'm doing, I'm gonna keep doing it, right? Because I didn't think anything like that would ever happen, especially with the house. The house was super unexpected. Like that just jumped up dramatically in price. And like I know a lot of people will be like, oh, false sense, whatever. Okay. That if I can really sell the house and I can really pull that money out of it, then that's a real reality of ownership that you get. Right? But that's not the point. Point being is that positioning yourself accordingly means that you got to be able to use that. And so now I'm thinking, crap, I got to find somebody that I can borrow money using my liquidable assets as collateral because I don't want to liquidate my assets. I want to keep them, right? And so now here it is. I've purchased like Bitcoin and gold and some other things that are out there. Some of it are kind of pay like dividend stocks and stuff like that, but it's not like a lot. It's just a little bit. It just trickles in some. And so when I think about what it is that I need to do, I need to really figure out a way to leverage up, meaning borrow into something that is going to start paying. Otherwise, it's just going to be a lot of time and presence trying to accumulate enough assets to 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 live off of. I mean, it's just not going to work, right? You got to figure out something that's going to pay you, and that's it. Like I could eventually put it into some kind of yielding, like bonds or something like that. But again, if you don't have a ton of money up in there, so it takes a lot more presence of savings and sacrifice and all that other stuff, and hope that you have enough by the end of it. Yeah, I mean, it's a try. You could like if you started off young, totally good plan. Like I think that even with the like even today, even with the job sucking and all that, you figure it out. You figure out how to like keep your living arrangements inexpensive and stuff like that, and you were able to save in that fashion. Yeah, load up on things that grow and have that accumulate over time or whatever. But if you're in a position in which that you only got a few years left before, retirement's coming, and you really don't have a whole lot going on, it doesn't matter really how much you've saved. It's just like, I mean, and don't get me wrong, it does matter. But unless you saved an insane amount of money, it's gonna go. State will take it from your medical or whatever. Something's gonna happen. It's all gonna get wiped away. And so it has to go into something else, somewhere that is going to start paying. Business, rental properties, something of this nature. Because otherwise, it's just like you can't save enough. Right? I mean, some people might be able to, like, don't get me wrong, $10 million in gold, okay, cool, you did, right? But no regular person's going to do that much, right? All right. Big Bang. I am looking to start a new account with somebody that pays you interest on money that you have parked in there. So, all right. 18, adult 18, retirement 65, offset of 47 years. If we cannot money in 47 years, what does that say about us? Leif Erikson should have his own holiday. Uh, Williams brother. Okay. The point of savings is to prevent a guy from liquidating his assets, investments in time of need. Yeah, and see, that's just the thing. There's going to be an emergency at some point, right? Whether it's medical deteriorations of your life that eventually the hospital will just take it because, if you don't have the coverage, then, who's going to take it? They're going to, you have to spend it, right? So it's to me, when I think about it, being in savings, being in liquidable assets is a great way to feel comfortable, secure, gives you the ability to sleep at night, right? That's really what it does. But if you really want something of like of exceptionalism, it really has to be done in the one way, right? There's really no other way of doing it. I mean, if you have a really good business idea or if you're a super savvy investor, right, then you might be able to do something out there. But for the most part, individuals are not going to be able to do it in that fashion. It's just too difficult, it's too complicated, they're too scared. They make a little bit of loss, don't take a learning lesson from it, and they just took it as punishment and said, I'm never going to do that again. This is what ends up holding most people back, right? And so it's not really like something that can be changed. It's just the way it is. What are you going to do? And knowing that like we have this like fiat currency system that is going to have this ever increasing amounts of debt issuance, ever increasing amounts of expansion of money. And if you try to save in that, you're not going to be able to save at a pace that is fast enough. Right? Things won't grow at a pace that is fast enough because people are going to be borrowing and buying things that cash flow. And now you have to compete against that. Like your savings and interest on that and the growth of that does not keep up. That's what's scary about it. That's what's really sad. Was that as good for you as it was for me? I was dirty boy. Laugh out loud. Now I'm clean, maybe not my mind. Yeah, definitely not your mind. All right. Build the savings to a point, 6 months, leaving expenses maybe, and then invest money after that savings is built. It's a buffer to protect your investments. You're right about investments not being as important late in life. I've been told to sell many of them, and it makes sense at my age. Well, I don't know what you're going to sell. What are you going to do with the sold items? Like, you got to move. I don't know, man. To me, at the end of it, I don't want to have to sell anything. What I want is whatever it is that I bought to be paying me, even if it isn't that much. Like, I mean, I don't like. I don't even imagine like what is it that I would really want. Like, I want a really nice motorhome to drive around or something. You know, I like this house. This is cool. Okay, I'm good, man. I mean, if I can get those things, I think I'm good. I don't need a whole lot in my life. I really don't. Being able to travel around, I think that would be like probably like the most luxurious thing that I would really want, right? Is to just be able to travel around and go and do whatever I want. And that that to me is it. Like, I don't know. People are like, man, I want like the nicest toys and the nicest things and all this stuff. And I'm like, God, like the last thing I want is a bunch of material possessions. Jesus. I just don't. I mean, it's not me. And I mean, don't get me wrong. I like some stuff. I like the tools. I like, having some things, I mean, I don't like having nothing, but, having a bunch of things and stuff and I don't know. Yeah, it doesn't seem appealing to me. Traveling around, going and hanging out, visiting people, visiting nice areas, doing things like that seems like the greatest. That seems like it would be just absolutely cool as hell. To me, I would like that would be awesome. All right. Aside from the Balencias, Simon wants for not. Yeah, I don't know. The shoes would be cool to have, right? Simon, you lie. You are addicted to building up your Rolex and Balenciagas collection. God, that would be cool to have a Rolex. I would totally wear it too. All right. What? All right. Heard mobile homes are not selling now. Deals to be had. Uh-huh. Humans are allowed to sin. We're not angels. Oh, absolutely. Free time, the best. Things don't make you happy. Experiences with other humans and animals works a lot better. Well, the experiences is really what it comes down to. And I mean, I believe that wholeheartedly. It's like it doesn't really matter. To me, I've had like some of the best times in my entire life. It was when I was like really didn't have much money at all. One of the greatest experiences that I have ever got to have when it comes to this whole YouTube thing was going down to Houston to speak on stage down at the Rebel Capitalist. And I kid you not, I had just bought the house. Anybody who knows my story knows that I had like $300 left in my checking account. It was like maybe 2 months later after that, and I was still essentially broke. And here it is, I'm standing on stage in front of 850 people, talking to the same crowd that Robert Kiyosaki and Ron Paul and Mark Moss and Lynn Alden and all these famous economists, people that I know, are out there speaking with, and I'm on the same stage with them, and I'm thinking, I don't hardly have any money at all. But it didn't matter. They didn't care. They weren't there to like. I wasn't there to talk about the money. I was there to talk about the lumber industry and my insights into the lumber industry, and I shared that with everybody, and they absolutely loved it. And since then I've just kind of expanded into monetary policies. Been invited back to the Rebel Capitalist last year. Was it last year or the year before? Year before? I can't even remember now. The year before, right? That I spoke there again, and it's like, man, I have done I don't know 6 speaking engagements now in 4 years. Three of them for Mike Zuber, two of them for George Gammon, one of them for the Silver Symposium. And I'm like, wow, man, this is crazy. It was just like, I never thought about the money. I never, the money, like during any of that, I never thought about like, I never thought about money. Like, I mean, I thought about the economy and I thought about money, but I didn't think about like how much money was in my bank account, my investments, and different things like that. I wasn't thinking of any of that stuff. None of it. Not a single bit of it. And yet I was still speaking on stage, and sharing my thoughts, sharing my information, sharing what it is that I've researched and learned. Right? You don't need money. Money is the wall that people decide needs to be put up in front of them to block them from doing the things that they really want to do with their life. Right? It's just another one of those things that they're like, oh man, I really can't do it because the money. And then really what it is that they're too scared or they're whatever, and then they use the money as the excuse because the money isn't the problem. Money flies everywhere. right? It's that the money's not the problem. It's the energy that's going into it that's the problem. Yeah. I mean, how many people out there say, "Oh, if I could only, get the right equipment and then I could start this, YouTube channel, but I need the right camera." And I'm like, "What? What kind of camera could you possibly need? I've been doing this on a broken cell phone for years now." Like it was just like you don't need anything. I mean, what kind of equipment would you possibly need? That doesn't make any sense to me. And yet to the other person, it was just like, oh no, I don't have the thousands of dollars to get this thing started yet. Well, whatever, I mean, it was just like that's not what's blocking you. It's not the money, right? Definitely people with certain energy seem to attract money easier. Absolutely they do, Jeff. Right? And here it is like most of the time, and even I suffer with this. Like here it is, like I have ways of being able to promote and try and make money. Now I pushed it quite a few times here, like the UE University and different things like that. But there is so many more ways that I could be doing it. So many more. It's just like I don't even like I look at it and I think to myself, what is it that is holding you back from actually pursuing some of these other things? And I literally have to tell myself, you are afraid of the commitment, man. You committed yourself to so many things, like making sure the videos get out, making sure that you show up on working time, show up, and all these other things, that you're afraid to commit yourself to yet another thing. I'm serious. Like that was the only excuse that I could come up with. Hmm. That's what's holding me back. This is my own commitment to my own self. Wow. Yeah, that's pretty scary, right? So knowing that for my own self and what it is that I have going on out there, I have to remind myself all the time that, dude, you are limiting yourself every single time you don't think you want to commit yourself to something, right? And I have to like, really work through that. It's like literally a mental block that's happening considering all the stuff that I do. I literally have a mental block that says you're not committing yourself to this. It is like God, what a weird thing to have going on. Uh, be open and shall receive, and you shall receive. Zero mentions in the Bible about gambling. I'd like to learn about, I'm thinking, of how the milkshake theory dollar goes up versus the Mar-a-Lago Accord dollar goes down. Which one will win out? Um, man, that's going to be a hard one to think about because I honestly think that there's another game plan inside of that with the Federal Reserve buying the debt of a foreign nation, which doesn't really seem to get used into theory yet. So I would want to take it to even yet another level, saying that before either of those things really like cause one extreme or the other, that the Federal Reserve steps in with a new tool to basically to essentially start liquidity injections using the debt of a foreign nation as opposed to the United States. And at that point, who knows what the dollar will do for strengthening or weakening, right? Because like I can't even I'm I don't even like how do I even fathom that, but I know that that's part of their toolbox because Ben Bernanke has already said it. So the credible threat of the other two or possibilities of a strengthening or weakening might be mitigated by the purchasing of foreign debt, right? I don't know. None of it's happened yet, so it's hard to say. But I wouldn't put that one off the table. Like it's not going to be this way or that way when there's yet another tool that can happen that's not been deployed and nobody talks about it. Yeah. Rental properties, mobile home parks, the best. Yeah, I talked to a guy who said that he was like really loading up on those things, and he was just essentially just a partnership. He would like basically part of the money man, And there was other guys who were, had companies that would, essentially build the park up and put all the trailers into place and get the property or the park managers and all that working. And he was just like, just basically just collected the money, I mean, his yield from his investment, but he didn't really participate in any of the actual anything. I don't think. I think he was just putting up the money. Sophie has a bank account paying 4%. Yeah, see, 4% yield isn't enough. That barely keeps up with inflation. You get like a 1% real return. Nice answer, Unique. Oh, thanks. All nighter here. All nighter have a good answer. I think the dollar milkshake ramped up already and then reverted. It may have another leg up in the near or distant future, in my opinion, but that's above my pay grade. Yeah, and I agree. Like there is some movement in there, but I just don't like. I just can't imagine any extreme out like. I mean, obviously there can be extremes, but I mean, I'm guessing to the point that it's going to be like, oh my God, there's this huge changing event that is happening. If that's going to take place, I would almost assume that that big changing event that's going to happen is that Federal Reserve stepping into the foreign debt market. Like that to me, it would be like, that's where they're headed. Like if anything out there, that would be it. And I can't imagine that happening until their tokenization and like, cashless society kind of thing. Ultimately, that way they can really control the movement of the money where it goes. And I think that that would be kind of like almost like a critical component or feature to the Federal Reserve buying foreign debt. Like to make sure that they can control where it is that that currency is headed to and who is it that essentially has it, where it stays, so to speak. All right. Let's cruise back up here. My old neighbors was buying up trailer parks. I should have listened 20 years ago. Yeah. Maybe I will go live on YouTube or post videos explaining that all they have to do is employ one professional with a weight machine and take 10 to 20% off and for a profit the bank and yeah. Why? Uh Deja, I might have to read that one again. All right. Astoria has a good airport. Why no airline service? There used to be. My mom flew to the Warrenton. It's not Astoria, it's in Warrenton, but yeah, she flew into the Warrenton airport. They did have a commuter flight that was going. I don't know if they still do, but they did have one for a while. So, all right. The ones with higher rents are best. Mobile home parks can be very troublesome, yeah. 20 years ago, maybe they were looking to sell finance already. Hyder, what isn't above your pay grade? Yeah. What is that? Good old Benny. All right. My brother did RV parks and he did good. Proverbs is the best financial book ever written. Dollar isn't going anywhere. I believe that. Scott, absolutely love Astoria Airport. Next time I'm back, me and my wife will be racing Simon down Leif Erikson. A dollar milkshake playing all the way out is assuming nothing changes, but I think Brent has acknowledged that. Yeah, and that's just the thing. Like the dollar milkshake theory really kind of goes off of the idea, at least for me. Like I haven't listened to Brent in like recently, so I don't know exactly what he has been saying in the last few months or weeks. But at least for me, when I think about the dollar and the strengthening of the dollar outside of the United States, when the debt becomes due. Now, a lot of times people have a tendency to think, well, the United States debt, and that's the dollar debt. But it's not just the dollar debt of the United States. Other nations out there write debts that are due in US dollars. And they don't have anything, this doesn't have anything to do with the United States at all, right? Like these are two nations outside of the United States that are doing a deal with each other and they're doing it in dollars and they're writing the contract in dollars. And this doesn't have anything to do with the United States government, doesn't have anything to do with the United States banks, doesn't have anything to do with the United States corporations, doesn't have anything to do with the United States people. The only thing that it has to do with the United States is the fact that they're using the dollar. That's it. And so when these nations are doing these deals with dollars and those debts come due, it causes a strengthening for those dollars because they have to get the dollars to pay the debt. Something very interesting that has also taken place is that those contracts that are written in dollars get used like dollars as well. So they're performing dollar transactions even though they're not dollars, right? You got real dollars and then you got contracts that are doing dollars, but the contracts are doing transactions as if they were dollars. So think about all the transactions that are happening around the globe being done with dollars and not necessarily dollars, but these contracts that are serving as dollars. So when the dollar pays that contract off, it disappears. So not only is there the strengthening of the dollar to get it to pay the debt, but once the debt is paid off, it literally removes dollars out of the system, which strengthens the dollar even more. Okay? And so that's a crazy concept to think about. As people were like, oh man, they're going to get out of the dollar. And I'm like, not a chance in the world. There ain't a chance in the world. They can't get out of the dollar. If they did, it would strengthen it. It would destroy them. They can't. Right? It's like literally a one-way street. They can only, there is no reversal. You can't get out of it because of Gresham's law. You put any other currency out there and you're going to have a problem with it because you have to introduce a good currency into the system. I mean, would you honestly take a bad currency? It was like, hey, the dollar is bad. It was like, yeah, I got one that's worse. Nobody's going to take it. You got to have a good currency. And if you introduce a good currency while the dollar's in play and you show it to me, I'm going to take it and you'll never see it again. A good currency like gold, silver, Bitcoin, you start introducing that and you're going to find people hoarding it because the dollar is the bad currency and it's going to perform the transactions and everything else will get hoarded away or ignored. The dollar is on a one-way street. It can only fail completely. It isn't going to get taken out by a competitor. That's not happening. That's not going to happen. All right, guys. What time is it? It's okay. It's almost 2 hours into this thing. Hour 42 minutes. We're at, what time is it? 8 o'clock. All right. 129 people with 101 likes. Thank you so much for hitting that like button. We're gonna call it quits here in the next, few minutes, because it's cold out here and it's time to end it. Like, we can't be out here all night, right? People told me that the dollar was garbage and that Bitcoin was the way to go, but I have never seen the dollar fluctuate as widely as Bitcoin does. I don't know why somebody would tell you that other than they just got hyped up on the idea of owning Bitcoin. But I have been buying Bitcoin at about $50 a week or every other week or once a month or sometimes not at all if I can't afford it. But I've been regularly buying Bitcoin for a very long time. And I tell you, I am very, very thankful that I have. But it is stupid volatile. It goes up and down in extreme fashions. I have watched my value of Bitcoin move by, well, I mean, how much has it moved now? I mean, it was at what, 120,000, now it's at 60. So yeah, I've seen the value of my Bitcoin move $30,000 in the course of, a matter of a few months. If you don't have the stomach for that, like, I mean, holy crap, right? Talk about, like, oh my God, look at all that money I should, whatever, right? If you don't have the stomach for it, then don't get in it, right? But the problem is that if your risk tolerance is that low, you're probably going to have a difficult time keeping up going into the future. It's like literally your risk tolerance is going to be like your like, to be able to level that part up of it, to be able to take on some ideas of, like, risky moves. I can only assume that's probably going to be the thing that is going to benefit people going into the future. At the same time, it's also going to punish them because, like, it's risk, right? So the more risk you take, the bigger chance you have of losing, but it's also the bigger chance you have of winning. And the chances of people actually doing that more often, considering things like Bitcoin and being in Bitcoin is incredibly volatile, they'll get used to it over time and then they'll be willing to do it more. Like, even for me, I'm thinking, like, yeah, what's $1,000? I watch Bitcoin fly around by $30,000, and so it's like, even now I know it's just like, dude, you know how long it takes to earn $1,000. Don't think that way. Yeah, but it's still, that's what happens when you're in a risky asset or an incredibly volatile asset like Bitcoin, is that you see thousands of dollars move daily. And pretty soon it's not like you're not looking at $1,000 that you have earned, but you're looking at $1,000 that have fluctuated within your portfolio. And once you have built that up to quite a bit, it's not a feeling of the same thing anymore. Right? You're not looking at it going, like, how many hours did it take me to earn that anymore? Like, that's not something you're even thinking about, right? It's like you're looking more of, like, how much yield can I get off of a particular asset if I was to put my assets into that particular thing, or whatever. And you're not even really thinking about how much you're earned or how many hours it takes to earn to get there. You know, that's what's weird about it. Yeah. Anyway, for me, it's that way for me. But that's because of the volatility. If you were sitting in something that didn't have a lot of volatility, you wouldn't be thinking that way. You'd be very concerned about it. All of a sudden a huge price drop and you'd be like, oh, what's going on? I never see this, But if you're in Bitcoin, you'd be like, oh, whatever. Like, yeah, I ain't gonna look today. Am I right? Yeah. All right. UE is a BTC baller thinking 40K down is nothing. No, I didn't say it was nothing. I'm just said I was used to the idea behind it, right? Like, I look back at it and I think to myself, it was just like, Jesus, was that a wrong move to not sell out at that moment of Bitcoin and take the money and just, whatever? And I'm like, well, I've never stepped out of it the entire time, and I'm pretty happy that I've been in it, and I'm pretty sure that it's going to come back at some point, even if it does go down from here. And if it does, take your opportunity to load up on it. So do I feel really bad that I didn't sell it? Absolutely not. I don't feel bad at all that I didn't sell it. Do I think it would have been a good move to have? Absolutely. I think it would have been a great move considering how much it would have been. What do I expect from it going into the future? Not a lot. I think I'm okay. Like, I think it's good, man. I'm dealing with the volatility just fine. And yeah, what could have bought me a house before, now I have to wait for it to come back. But, it's not that. It's not that at all. All right, Slumlord Simon actually has a nice ring to it. Yeah. All right. Simon. So, oh, not Simon. It says so many tools in their toolbox, they are able to avoid strong dollar or milkshake happening. Is that kind of what you meant? I like that one Fed officer said there will no longer be recessions. Um, okay, so I think what you're talking about was Janet Yellen saying that we may never face another financial crisis in our lifetime, which is different from saying that we'll never face another recession. Now, I kind of took it at the time. Like, I even said it. Like, she said that we would never have another recession. That's not what she said, right? She said we would not have another financial crisis. Doesn't mean that we wouldn't have a recession, right? So those are two different things going on. And I would not go as far as to say, like, the Fed has a tool for fixing everything inside it, like in their toolbox to fix every problem, every scenario that has ever imagined. Like, I can't imagine that being the case at all. Like, there's going to be a time when they face a crisis that is going to be very difficult to deal with. But ultimately, they know it's managing from crisis to crisis. Like, they know that's what they are doing. They've even said it within their own statements that they're managing crisis to crisis. And so it's like thinking, okay, so what is the next crisis going to be? We, as the people, expect it to happen within the working class individuals because that's where it used to be, right? We were the backbone of the economy. We were the ones who were driving the consuming. We were the ones that mattered. And so when we felt some pain, like we lost our job and we lost, the ability to consume, that created a recession. It was a problem. Like we lost our jobs, recessionary pressures came from that because we were the consumer. And this was a major problem that we faced not only in the economy, but as the people ourselves, the working class individual. This is where the Federal Reserve tried to bail us out by getting us work again. How do they do that? They lowered interest rates. Corporations would borrow that money, and by borrowing that money, they would reinvest back into their company, and part of that was hiring people. Now, a lot of times people will just think, oh, they lower interest rates, and that gets people to borrow the money to go out there and consume. Yes, that takes place, but really it's the investment by the corporations hiring people, getting that unemployment to come down, and when the unemployment comes down, the people start consuming, and then that's where you find that the inflationary pressures come and the recession comes down, right? The recession ends and the inflationary pressures are coming from it. Now, that's the way the Fed used to look at it. We are not the important critical part of this anymore. So whether or not we are working or not working doesn't really matter. We're not the consumer. So whether we get a raise, we get laid off, doesn't matter. The consumer is up at the top 20%, 10-20% of household incomes. So as we think about it, it's like, oh, if unemployment rises, it's going to cause a recession. Doubtful. It's very doubtful. You're not the consumer. Why would there be a recession? You're not the consumer. We're not the consumer. We, the working class individuals, are not the consumer anymore. That's at the top 10-20% of households. They're doing the consuming. So if there's going to be a recession, it's going to come from a fall in consumption. Well, if it comes from a fall in consumption, that means it has to come from the top 10-20% of people cutting back on their consumption. They're not. They're increasing it. Why? So because the inflation expectation is rising, it's lowering the neutral or raising the neutral interest rate and lessening the restriction upon the economy. So they're kicking ass. And we're wondering why it's so hard. Like, I can explain this over and over again. My story will not change. You're going to come back to this video 6 months from now, and it's going to be telling the exact same story that you're going to hear in 6 months. This is it. This is what's going down. There's no changing this. There's not going to be any fixing it. To understand what's going on is the important part so that you know how to position yourself accordingly for it. Getting into cash flowing assets is the important part. Getting into the cash flowing assets is going to be the important part, because if you don't do that, there's going to be other people who do, and they're going to leave you behind. And so you're going to be wondering who it is that you're competing against all these people who downloaded Robinhood and Cash App and Menmo and all these other stuff and started loading up on dividend paying ETFs and real estate investment trusts and Bitcoin and gold and silver and all this other stuff, where everybody who didn't think to do that is working a day job, and they're going to get left behind. And that's it. That's it, right? That's everything. And so the people who do it best are the people who are borrowing and buying cash flowing assets, and the easiest, most efficient, definite, time tested, proven, done it time and time again. There's plenty of people, Dion and Lumberjack Landlord and Mike Zuber and Millennial Mike and all the guys are sharing how it is that they have doing it right now, all right? Doing it today, doing it right now, and how it is to borrow cheap, get into cash flowing assets one way or the other. How you uniquely figure that part out, whether it's house hacking, teaming up with other people, fixing up a rental property, doing a rent to build or build to rent. That's what I'm thinking. Like, maybe that I have a shot at that. Maybe I can do a build to rent around here, because buying a place ain't going to happen. So maybe I can just make one happen here. I don't know, right? Well, that'll be the next idea that I'm pursuing. Got some ideas on it. We'll see what happens. Good times. Alrighty, guys. Are we done yet? Do you get all the links up there? Yeah, cool. Right on. And it's funny, like, actually seeing how it's done now and watching other people do it, like I'm the observer, right? I've always been that way. Like I'm the one who's just like, I sit back and watch proof of concept things, you know, learning learning from just from my own sake of understanding something. Right? That's kind of what I've always been into. Like I've always wanted to take things apart, but I never really wanted to put them back together. Isn't that what's weird? Like I love taking things apart, but I never really like I was like, cool. And then it was like, are you gonna put it back together? I'm like, nah. Like I just wanted to see how it worked. Like I didn't really care about any like making like I don't know about any of the other parts of it. Like I mean, I guess I cared about making it work, but it was more about how does it work? That was where my curiosity, like why is it doing this? And then once I figured that part out, I was like, oh, and then I could leave it alone, And that's probably why the economy was something that I just dug into so deeply. It was like, how does this work? And there's so much to look at. And I'm like, oh, this, and oh, look at all that, And I just kept diving deeper into theories and ideas and concepts and policies. And I just never gave it up. It was just like, I just feel like disassembling it all. Like I just want to disassemble it all. Yeah. So it's in many pieces, just scattered everywhere around me. Look at it all disassembled. Analyzing and then leaving the pieces. Kinda, yeah. Proof Simon is gonna juice? What does that mean? Simon do an S block. SB lock. What I don't even know what that is. What is an SB lock? Love going to the dump and getting all the junk out of. Not a fan of getting on the scale and the price. Cody Davis is only 23 and has the wisdom of generations. He's a really great kid for the future. Yeah, that kid. So I don't know if you guys heard me talk about him, but so I'm sitting on like down there at the conference, right, Zuber's conference, and I'm listening to Cody talk, and I'm like, holy cow. Like, talk about impressive. And I'm like, where the hell did this kid get all this? Like, he's like All Nighter saying, he's 23 years old. Dude's talking like a level of understanding within real estate that, the biggest professional real estate guys are talking. I mean, it's impressive level stuff. And I'm like, dang, man, if this kid can pull it off at 23, like, right. Is the dollar going to weaken in the short term? I don't know. By how much do you think? And like, it's going to fluctuate. It will never go up or down forever. So, like, by how much or what is it you're thinking? I mean, to me, when I think about the situation we now face, most people just look at it and say, oh, the Federal Reserve is just going to cause more money printing and inflation. And I think to myself, well, they hope you think that. Like, if you think that, then they're going to be pretty happy about that. But the reality of the situation is much different. And so when I think about the demand for dollars outside of the United States and whether or not they can actually fulfill that demand and when does that demand rise or fall, who knows, man? Nobody even knows how big that debt is. How big is the derivative market? It's incredible. And so, trying to say whether it's going to go up or down, in my mind, in the long run, it'll probably strengthen more than you could ever have possibly imagined. How far out into the future? I don't know. Are there going to be people who really truly try to get out of the U.S. debt? Or do people continue to write debts in dollars? Is the Federal Reserve going to be able to provide the world with enough dollars? I mean, if they can, then that wouldn't necessarily cause the dollar to strengthen. The question of whether or not the dollar is going to strengthen or not, it can't be really answered, right? I mean, I think in the long run, the dollar is probably going to strengthen more than anybody could ever possibly have imagined. But then again, how long out is that? Will I be alive to see it? Will they go into tokenization? Will they have cashless societies? Well, I mean, I don't know. Like, I don't know any of that stuff. So there's no way I can make a call like that. None, right? There's no way. But we can observe what it is that's taking place at the time and say, well, Now we know with these tools and these things that they are doing, the idea of them buying into foreign government debt or something like that, we have a whole new concept of what it is. It would change all our ideas. You make a decision based off of your belief system today without the ability to then adjust and change that belief going into the future based on new information, you're going to end up, you're going to end up getting screwed, right? Being in the wrong position at the wrong time. But being aware that things are changing constantly, like will the dollar strengthen or not? I couldn't tell you over the short term. Who knows? But over the long term, it makes sense to me that it would strengthen to a point that people would just be absolutely blown away, especially when the debt starts to come due and they can't print up enough to cover it. And I'm not just talking US Treasury debt. I'm talking world, global, dollar denominated debt. Like, why is it that the Federal Reserve is responsible for printing up enough money to cover a debt that two other people had made? It's because they're responsible for holding and custodying of the world reserve currency. So when two other nations do it, whether they want to be responsible for it or not, that dollar is going to strengthen or weaken at some point, and they are going to have to deal with it. All right. Alrighty, guys, I'm going to call it quits. Couple more comments here, then we'll call it good. In my opinion, 99% of the people wearing a hat that says "End the Fed" are living in such a way that the hat should say "Thank God for the Fed." I totally agree. I really honestly feel like I wear the hat appropriately because with the understanding that I have of the elevated inflation and inflation expectation raising the neutral interest rate, if people understood it the way that I understood it, I believe that the Federal Reserve would not be able to conduct themselves the way they are and that it would end the Fed. But I agree. Everybody who wears the "End the Fed" hat is generally probably using the Fed for their advantage in such a profound way, being able to borrow money to buy cash flowing assets. And without the Fed, they wouldn't have that ability. And they probably are down on both knees praying to God that the Fed stays intact. All right. But people say Japan is 20 years ahead of us. Do you think we're going to stagflation? We are in stagflation, but you also have to understand that we are a world reserve currency. Japan is not. Japan does have currency that does world reserve trade kind of things, like people use it as a reserve currency, but not the world reserve currency like the United States dollar does. So to compare it to Japan is not, it's not the same game, right? So it's not even close. The numbers say we are already in stagflation. Yeah. With Professor Simon and with Cantillon, the GOAT 300 years ahead. Well, I appreciate that. You guys are awesome. Thank you all for being here. 114 people watching with 110 likes. Thank you so much for hitting that like button. We are out here constantly sharing the information, trying to understand it a little bit better for ourselves. And again, I think Astoria is a prime example of the Cantillon effect. In fact, being here, watching it for the last 30 years and seeing it going from an industrial community of fishing and logging to more hospital district, remote workers, retirement community. It has definitely changed the way the property ownership has for the area, what the desires, what the looks, even the feel of the town has now shifted into a much different feel from what it was when I was a kid here. And I believe the Cantillon effect is a lot to explain how that happened. So thank you for being here, Uneducated Economist. Again, take advantage of the next few days while the UE University is still available for a free trial, right? So after, I think probably Sunday, I'm going to end the free trial portion of it, and you'll have to pay for it from that point on. But as of right now, you have access to the UE University where you can go and look at the credible threat theory course. Down at the bottom of every one of those courses, there's resources to links to the PDF files for all the speeches. Like every one of them. Go and download all the speeches. They're highlighted for you so that you know right where I have gone to in those speeches to show exactly where it is that I have used to develop the credible threat theory. So all the information's there. Like it's for you for free. Right? Like go get it. And so I'm gonna, like I said, I'm gonna have that available for you for a short time yet. All right. All right, the country is preparing for a large sum of people whom did not prepare for their future. Wayne, with that, I totally agree. Uneducated economist, you let me know.